Hello, Eagle fans. I'm Noah Risch, your host of Take Flight TV. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Sarah Weiss. Sarah was an undergraduate student at Marquette and did her med school at University of Wisconsin-Madison, and she is now in her second of 3 years residency at Mayo Clinic. Dr. Weiss, thanks for joining us today. How you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Well, today, one of the reasons why we wanted to have you on to give to our listeners is some stuff to do with allergies in springtime. So I guess my first question is, what are some of the most common spring allergies you see in college age students?
Sure. So the most common allergy at this time of the year is pollens, and they come from lots of the trees, along with some of the plants on the ground. So especially with this wind that we've had recently this spring, the last week was pretty windy. That's basically, moving all the pollen into basically our sinuses, our noses, and kind of irritating us, causing probably this flare of allergies in a lot of people.
Okay.
The other thing is mold. That's pretty common, especially in, some older buildings. And after, a damp winter, damp fall, you can definitely see those. And you can still see it in the spring too.
Awesome. And so what are some things that student athletes, at our university or others, especially athletes competing outside, things that they can do to help minimize discomfort from allergies?
Sure. So a lot of the spring sports, obviously you guys are spending most of your time outside now that it's warm enough to do so. And so you're getting exposed to all these pollens. So I've seen a lot of patients, actually college age, who are coming in with worsened allergies. And I basically tell them very similar thing for everyone. I always tell them to start with an anti-allergy medication that's over the counter. You don't need a prescription for it, such as Claritin, Zyrtec, or Allegra. And all of these can come as non-generics and are pretty affordable over the counter. And these types, the ones that I mentioned, are non-sedating, so it's good for sports. So wake up, you can take these. They won't make you tired, so you can still go to school and perform in sports. The other thing to do is nasal rinses with saline. That's over the counter too. It basically cleans out your airways, so your nasal passages. And so then it kind of clears all those allergens out of your airways. So then you're, having less of a reaction to it. And I always kind of describe to people like your nose is kind of like the windshield, when it's probably dirty with, dirt, and how you kind of brush it off with, the cleaner. It's the same thing with nasal rinse to get rid of the irritants.
Nice. That's a good analogy, Dr. Rice. So,
Yeah.
And then what are some things that students can do? Maybe they live in an off-campus house or in the dorms. What are some things they can do to help limit the allergies when they're living there? I talked about fans a little bit with you.
Yep. So I know it's frustrating when it's getting this worm out, but to not have the windows open at night is really important, especially if you are having increased symptoms. So, I've kept my windows closed, the weather's been so nice, and run the air conditioning instead. The other thing is make sure you wash your clothes at the end of the day, and then, take a shower, because then that kind of washes all the irritants out. And then also, if you have pets and you found that you're allergic to them, honestly, sometimes you kind of have to get rid of that cat or just find a way to keep the living area separate. So keep pets out of your bedroom, that sort of thing is a good way for, the different type of allergens like dust and
For sure.
so forth.
Yes. Thankfully, I'm not allergic to anything, so I don't have to deal with I don't have a dog anyways, but and lastly, Dr. Weiss, can you talk a little bit about, hey, maybe they're having some allergies. How do you know if it's allergies, a cold, or even COVID?
Sure. So allergies, the symptoms that you typically have is the runny nose, itchy eyes, your eyes can water. You can have sort of like a fullness feeling in your ears. And then you can have kind of like a, not a sore throat, but kind of like an irritated throat with sometimes a cough. But then with an upper respiratory infection such as common colds or even COVID-19 infection, they tend to have fevers, body aches. COVID can have diarrhea, also loss of taste and smell, as most people know. So basically it's kind of different symptoms. So COVID and common cold tend to be a little more systemic versus the allergies tend to be pretty focused with symptoms.
Okay, so,
The other thing is, if your allergies respond to these anti-allergy medications that I mentioned, that's a good point to that. It's probably allergies then at that point.
yes, hopefully that knocks it out. So, well, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Weiss. Hopefully this is useful for some of our student athletes as they compete here this spring. It's been nice to see them in action and get the weather to warm up a little bit. So thank you and have a great rest of your time in your residency at Mayo.
Thanks.